Hello and namaste everyone. I am Rishabh from Yoda Learning Academy, and in this 1.5 hours video, I'm presenting before you the Excel charts for data analysis and reporting. Now, before I started making this video, I was going through some of the questions that I regularly get. One of them was, hey, I don't understand the chart settings. Can you elaborate on that? Of course. Now, there are many charts, but from a business point of view, there are few important charts, such as Thermometer chart, Gantt chart, Trendline, Waterfall Chart. And the problem with Waterfall Chart is that unless you have the version 2016, you will not get access to that. So in this video, I have included the technique to create a waterfall chart even if you have the older versions of Excel. There are many other charts which I'll be talking about apart from the usual ones, such as Radar or Spider chart, Butterfly chart, how to create ghost lines in a line chart, ringed donut, 7 design principles for creating charts, and I've taken a project based on my experience in the non-banking financial services domain, which is how to create a chart which involves multiple settings and synthetic changes to create charts that are not ready-made available in Excel or PowerPoint. So hope you start the journey and finish it to the last very end. And in case you found something new and interesting, please do not forget to mention that in the comment. That's how people get to know about this content of the video. And you would be helping other fellow YouTube subscribers and members to learn something that you have done so far. So let's start.
Here I bring before you a video on the most basic essential settings of a chart. For example, how do you change the background color? How do you change the chart color? How do you change the basic axis settings and values? And how to put data labels. So, before me lies a small group of data of 5 regions, the actual sales versus the target sales. And I'm going to choose this information, this table. Go to Insert tab. That's where all the charts are lying. Insert. Within the Charts section, I pick up the basic 2D column chart. And this is what I get. Now, the canvas on which we draw the chart is referred as chart area. That's the entire enclosure within which the elements of charts exist. Within chart area, I have a plot area. Notice, as I choose this area, it's called plot area. Plus, the border tells me it's the small area where the main chart is existing. Now, I correlate this with a canvas-based drawing. When you pick up a canvas, you leave aside some area, white borders across the 4 corners of the canvas, and then you start plotting your graph or start plotting your sketch or chart. Well, it's the same concept. So, if ever you wish to change the background of the chart area, you may right-click on the chart area, go to Format Chart Area, and from there, I might pick up the fill, solid fill, and may pick up a contrasting color, let's say dark red or maybe black. Correct? That was chart area. Now if I pick up the plot area and then right click and go to Format Plot Area, I might just give a different color altogether. So notice I might also increase the transparency a bit. This gives a quick effect like a semi-translucent background. Similarly, if you wish to change the color of the chart elements, let's say this blue bar, the moment I choose it the first time, the bubbles across the column chart tell me that all of them have been chosen. So then I go to Format, and within Format, I pick up Shape Fill, let's say purple. Okay, I know it's a horrendous colors right now given the contrast, but we are just experimenting right now. On the other hand, if you wish to change the color of only one of the portions of this purple column diagram, you might choose this twice, such that the bubble appears only on the first or second or third or fourth bar. Now I go to Shape Fill and I pick a dark green color. Similarly, you can also give a shape outline which may have a higher weight, and this is how it's going to look like once I give a shape outline and a proper color. Yeah, notice? Now, coming back to the font part, if I choose this selection and I press Ctrl B, it bolds out. I go to Home tab, I pick up the font color white. Those are the quick basic settings. On the other hand, if you wish to change the incremental change within the axis value, you may have to right click on the axis, go to Format Axis, and then tell that look, 0 is the minimum, maximum is 1400, and what is the general difference you would want to have in the axis. Currently it's 200 as I can see. So I'm going to change this to let's say 300 and see what happens as I press enter. Notice 0, 100, 300, 600, 900, 1200 and 1500. Now, if I choose the legend and again apply a white color, maybe even bold, you can also change the properties of the text of the chart title and the legend by simply going to Home tab and applying the text based color. Next, I wish to show a quick data label, the number of the different charts. So I go to the purple one, I go to Design tab. Now in 2007 and 2010 version of Excel, it had a separate section called Chart Tools Layout. But what they have now in 2013 is Chart Tools Design, and within Design, they find Add Chart Element. Now, if you could just take a moment, pause the video right now and walk through the terminologies used here. Now, I wish to have a data label. Notice, as I choose the various option, I am getting, in this case, data callout 2 outside N. If I choose the first one, I make it bold and maybe font color white. So this is one way of putting data labels. So in all, we spoke about changing the background of the chart area, the background of plot area, changing the incremental difference between the axis values, and also putting the data labels. Before we embark upon the journey of fascinating charts, let me also walk you through some of the very important settings of chart elements. So, lies before me a very simple data, 5 months, the number associated with them, and the average of all of these 5 months. So this is a basic average out of those 5 numbers. Now, when I wish to create a chart something like this, I go to Insert, I pick up a column chart, right? Now, let's say I wish to create the orange bar as a line graph. So I might right click and click on Change the Series Chart Type. It is very convenient in 2013 that I can quickly, from a single panel, choose the average to be that of a single line graph. Okay, it looks like this. Apart from this, what are the other settings? Well, if you wish to add the data labels or if you wish to change the colors, you'll have to go to the chart tools. So I choose the bar, I go to chart tools. Within design, one of the available option is the different templates. If I click on this or maybe this or this or this, the look changes completely, right? Now, it again depends on the usage of colors that you're allowed to use in the presentation. Next, if I choose the blue bar, I go to design. I then go to chart elements. Now, amongst the chart elements, you'll find several things. The one which is the most commonly used is data label. So based on which chart type have you used, you will be given option that where do you want to put the data labels, and which can again suitably be modified. So if I choose the data labels against all the blue bars, I can make it bold, maybe increase the size a bit, and that looks more prominent. Next, if you want to show the latest month first, let's say May 1st and then April and then towards the last January, you might choose the axis, right click, go to format axis, and the axis settings allow me to choose this option which is neatly hidden towards the bottom right of my screen, and it says categories in reverse order. Notice immediately May is the first and Jan is the last. I take this part away. Next, let's suppose that I wish to show these labels in single comma format. So I might right click, go to format data labels. I will hide the label option. I will go to number. I will choose number from the number options and then maybe change the decimal to 1. Same setting was also applicable in 2010 and 7 version of Excel, although the look might be a little different, but definitely you will be getting the same setting which we just used. Next, if you wish to change the incremental difference between these numbers, you might right click on the axis, go to format axis, and then say the major unit, let that be, let's say 3. Okay, and the maximum could be what, 12. So maximum means which is right on top of the axis, 0 is the minimum, major is the difference between them. And if you're using minor grid lines, the thin lines which appear very closely against each other, you might also give minor line, let's say 1. Although as of now, until I activate minor lines, this may not show up on your screen. That's fine. Let me press enter. Now I don't see the minor lines, so until I activate that I won't. So I choose the chart, I go to design tab, I go to chart element, and let me look for the grid lines, one of which is minor lines, horizontal. Let me activate the remaining grid lines, minor vertical. So it's a very thin line that gets generated there. Yeah, I had deactivated it, but if I go back and I choose minor horizontal, there's thin lines appearing between the 9 and the 12, and the distance is based on the setting, the one that you chose just now, the major and the minor. If I go back to chart element, you will also get something like, let's say, trend line. So moving average, based on which one? Of course, the blue one, which is the number itself, okay? Now, I'm not getting a line starting from the 1st January because there is no value before January. So it picks up the average, 5 plus 2, that is 7. 7 divided by 2, that is 3.5. So 3.5 and the next one. I can choose this, go to format, and maybe I can apply a different color. If I go back to design, let's see the other settings. I also get chart title, which is nothing but the title that you're seeing right now. What are the other things? Data table, not label, data table. So below the chart, you will get to see the table of values. Yeah, something like this. And before I close this video session, let me share with you one fascinating trick. Let's suppose in a cell I'm writing experiment. Now, this is applicable for Excel and not exactly PowerPoint. I choose this data label. I go to function bar, I put equal to, and then I choose this cell, enter. Notice now, anytime this cell changes, the heading will change. So if I'm writing, let's say ABC, enter, super. In this way, you can make your chart title dynamic in your Excel dashboards. So friends, these were some of the very basic and important settings which will later help you in customizing your chart in the manner you want it to be. This time, let me share with you the trick which enables you to make a chart based on timeline. So for example, in the last few quarters, I wish to show the trend of when did I incur profit or when did I incur losses, and the general overall trend using a 2-quarter average for all these numbers. And the example is right in front of you. So I will first choose the information, the table of values. I go to insert and I go to column, 2D column chart. Watch, the basic skeleton is the same. Now, you notice the upfront that few things are different. Of course, the color, then the trend line, and the values. These axis values are interfering with the negative numbers, right? So I right click, I go to format axis. One of the options you and I will be looking at is that where is the axis position going to be? Where is the axis label going to be? So labels, I know it's a setting deep down inside here. So the labels, this axis label, it should be positioned in such a manner it is on the high level. Notice it jumped. So sometimes this is very important because I do not want this to be interfering with the chart. Next, I choose the graph. I go to fill option. Now in 2010 Excel and 2013 Excel and so on from here, there is a setting called invert if negative. Okay. Now what happened? Well, first you need to give a solid fill, choose a color, green. The invert if negative was also present in 2010, but it didn't give me this option of choosing the second color. So when I choose the second color, notice it is already turning into red automatically. So I guess 2007 had this anomaly. 2010 and 13, you will get these two palettes to be able to color. Now, once I do that, I also want a trend. Where would you find the trend? It's an element of the chart. So you go to design, add chart element, and then find the trend line. There you go. Moving average. By default, 2-quarter moving average. You can go to more trend line options to see the details. I'll go to moving average, choose the line graph, and then perhaps apply a certain style. What style? Well, I can see it from here. Maybe apply a dotted line. So by now we are very familiar with the dashes and the dots. If you wish to increase the width, maybe you can try some more combinations. Yeah, but this looks subtle and this looks nice. Now in future, this becomes positive. Automatically on top of the axis and is green, and also distorting the trend line a bit. So this was a simple video showing you how to create a trend line, how to invert the colors green and red, and also change the positioning of the axis labels all in one. Do practice this, very important settings. This time, let's delve into how a thermometer chart is created. Now, the name seems very jazzy, but I wonder how does that look? Well, let me give you an example. This time we have three variables. In fact, two main variables, the dark blue and the light blue. The dark blue border is actually the target which people have been asked to achieve from different regions. So for example, the sales team in Eastern region has been given a target of approximately $4 million, and it is seen that they have not been able to achieve that. And how much have they achieved? Roughly $2.5 million. Now, despite this underachievement, I can argue that the actual sale is slightly higher than the last year's actual sales. That is being denoted by the red dot. So imagine, without using a single number as data labels in my chart, I'm able to decipher this very easily. My audience is able to decipher this very easily. So let us see how this is made. Let me press escape, get out of the presentation, and then begin talking about the chart through an Excel data which I have already fed in. So before us lies case study 1, where you have the current year actual and the current year target. Once we see how to make a thermometer chart out of these two columns, I will also add one more variable, but that for the later video. As of now, let me choose this information, this table, and let us go to insert. Within insert, I go to the 2D column chart. That is my starting point, and I click on it. Now, when we were able to compare thermometer chart, the one that you saw with the one that you have right now, I see that somehow the orange one, the later, the target, has been overlapping in the previous. So how do I make it overlap? Well, on your screen, it might look like this. And on any one of the orange bar, I right click and I will be getting one setting called Format Data Series. Okay, I'm going to click on that. Now, the panel comes up on the right hand side. If you wish, you can click on the drop down and also move it, say on the left hand side. Now, when I right click and go to Format Data Series, this is exactly what we are getting. So within that, we have this fill in line option, we have the effects option, and we have the series option. Now, within series option, if I increase the overlap percentage to 100%, it appears that orange has overlapped with the position of the blue bar. But I'm not able to see the strength of the blue bar in some cases, let's say north and west. Why? Because the orange bar has overshadowed the blue one. So what do I do from here? I will again right click, go to Format Data Series, which I'm already on, and in that I will go to Fill, and I'll say no fill. Temporarily, it has been made invisible. It's still there, but it's just that you and I can't see it because there is no color, no fill. So if you wish to make it visible, a better way would be to go to border, put a solid line, and I'm increasing the width of this solid line and also choosing a contrasting dark blue color. Notice, so in some of these cases I have overachieved the target, in some of these cases I could not meet the targets. So this is the absolute basic form of thermometer chart. A lot of time people apply some color variation, which means they choose the light blue, they go to fill, and within fill they might choose a solid fill and take up a light blue, and then if they wish they increase the transparency. In some cases this looks even more beautiful. So this is the basic thermometer chart. When you have two values of same scale and you wish to compare them, the normal chart anybody can prepare. In fact, most people do. They do choose the data. I'm talking this format shape here, and after choosing this data they go to insert and they go to column and they choose the basic column chart. Well, if I put both of them side by side just to make sure they are easily comparable, I'm optimizing the size and then it's there for your look. So you see, in some cases thermometer chart can be very useful in getting the data analyzed very fast, plus it looks beautiful. Do try these settings, and I'll show you one more trick in the next video where you add the third variable, that is last year's actual sales in comparison to the existing two variables. So after having gone through one of the basic videos on thermometer charts, why are they used in which scenarios, and how do they look in comparison to the existing super boring column chart. So after having discussed that, let me take you to another aspect of thermometer chart. And what is the difference in the aspect? Well, I will be adding a third variable as explained in one of my prior videos. The red dot. The red dot indicates the actual sales of last year. The blue shaded region, the light blue shaded region, indicates the actual sales of current year. So I can quickly find out which has been greater amongst the two. Plus, within the current year, I was given a target in all the regions. And did I meet the target? Did I underachieve the target? Or I overachieved the target? So let us see how this is done. Let me go to one of the practice sheets, and you have the raw data before you. Current year actual, current year target, and in comparison to previous year's actual. Okay, so in fact, let me choose this entire block. It is worthwhile to note that you keep the target immediately after the actual, because then you can make it quickly. No fill with a thick border. I choose this data. I go to insert, column, and the starting point is 2D column chart, the clustered column. Right. Now, the gray one, I am going to change the chart type at all. So you might right click on that. You can go to change series chart type, or you can go to design and change chart type. Whichever way you go, you will reach to the same panel which is being shown on your screen right now. And let me find out where is the gray. Okay, this is the gray. Previous year actual, let me convert into a line graph with marker. Then I choose the marker. Notice the bubble has been on every line marker. Then I go to format and I say shape outline, no outline, which quickly ensures that the outline has been made invisible. Then I do what? I go to shape fill and let me apply a dark contrasting color, let's say black. If I wish to increase the size of this black, let me right click on it and get me to format data series. Alright, now within format data series, I'm getting effects, I am getting fill, and within fill, I have line and marker. So I go to marker. Now, let me just minimize the remaining options, fill and border. Let me just go to marker. And I'm saying that, okay, please give me squarish like approach. And you might want to increase the size to make it look prominent. You can also take something like this. Now, this is one aspect. On the other hand, I want to make orange and blue in a thermometer mode. So I choose the orange bar, right click, format data series, and I go to series overlap 100%. Next, after having done so, I want to ensure that orange, although it's overlapping on blue, but it's able to show the strength of the blue bar. So within the same fill option, I go to fill and I say no fill. This is very much in line with the previous video where I discussed the basics of thermometer chart. Once I completed that, I am going to go to borders, maintain a very thick border, solid line. Sometimes this automatic may be chosen, so choose solid line and then the option will arrive on your screen. As I said, increase the width. Okay, I did. And if you wish, you can change the color. Now, when I look at this, in fact, let me just change the color for the black floating markers. I go to fill, I go to marker, and within that, I'm changing the size a bit more. And then within fill, although I'm not too sure when you go to fill whether the existing color is being shown. Yes, it is being shown. So I convert that into a charcoal gray or maybe orange. Yeah, again, this is completely dependent on you because it's a pure judgment which one would you like to take. So you can test with different colors and see which happens to be the best in terms of suitability and aesthetics. So now what we have before us is the actual versus target comparison for the current year. Plus, with the help of the orange bar, I can also make out that whether the last year's actual sales were less than the current year actual sales or not. So this is thermometer chart with a slight different variations. However, if you wish to add the data labels, you might have to choose the bar, go to design, and then add chart elements such as add data labels outside end, and in some of the cases you might have to optimize this, maybe place here left or maybe place here right, depending on how you may want to look it towards the final stages. But as a good practice, what do? I ensure that the color of the font is matching with the color of the bar. So if you wish, you can go to home and just for experimentation sake, if I go to the alpha sign, I simply change the color, maybe even make it bold. So there you go. That was thermometer chart level 2. In this video, we'll learn two important tricks of the chart. One, how to make a two-axis chart at a basic level. Secondly, at times it happens that you have two divergent views on certain forecasted numbers. Or maybe the answers are coming from two different sources, in which case I perhaps would want to have two dotted lines and they both are diverging at a certain point in the timeline. So point one, the two variables should be of different scale. One can be percentage and one can be straightaway volume or EBITDA number. And within that, one of the items, especially the line graph, may have two divergent views. So let us see how this is made in the first place. First, purposely I'm choosing the entire block, especially knowing the fact that this is blank. What happens is this company is reporting the volumes in $1 million, the number of units sold, and what has been the gross margin percentage over the years. However, in 2016, they are just putting an internal estimate that 7% is going to be the gross margin percentage. Okay, so with that, I go to insert, column and column chart. Now notice what happened. I am not able to see the small minuscule value of this percentage. Why? Because you're trying to compare volume and margin in the same axis. So if you're using 2010 or 7, it's very difficult for me to right click on the small, almost non-existing orange part and then right click for my data series and make some changes. Well, in that case, you might click on the legend margin percentage, right click, format data series, and then you may choose what you need to do. You may make that secondary axis if you wish to, which I will. However, in case you use 2013, there's a much better way. You might right click on the chart which is visible, go to chain series chart type, and this panel lets you change the axis right from that one single interface. So both the margin, I'm putting them in secondary axis, and both of them should be lined with marker. Now notice I am just getting one line because of course the next line is absolutely zero, nothing. So how do I show the divergent view? Well, at the point which they are agreeing, I'm going to put the same value 5.7, just copy pasting here. And at the point where they are diverging, I'm putting 11%. Notice there's a divergence and I choose this value, the marker, go to format, shape outline. And within that, I'm making this as a dash dotted line. Maybe if you want, you can change the color. That's a different scenario. And this one, I'm clicking it twice so that only one part of the line graph, the one marker is selected. I will use a similar technique, shape outline, dashes, and just maybe I might give a slightly different color vis-a-vis the previous one. Again, it's purely your choice. As of now, I'm just keeping it the same. If you wish to change the color of the entire orange line, then choose the marker. Notice the bubble, it is choosing all the bubbles, all the marker. Then you go to shape outline. If you wish, you can apply a different color. Yep, I'm applying dark red. That's the way it works. And the marker color, shape fill, maybe same red or a different shade of red. So there you go. This is a nice way of showing two axis charts. One axis presenting the volume. You can change the color and make sure people are being able to read that in the form of the blue shade. And the right hand side, I'm changing the color to dark red so that people are now able to correlate. Okay, the red one is for margin percentage and the blue one is for volume. And at the point where there's an analyst estimate divergence, there is this dotted line in black. So that was two axis chart for you with the Gostlines. This time we will learn about horizontal bar chart and the various aesthetic tricks that makes it look beautiful. Take for example a comparative number set for funds raised in US $1 billion by different industries in a particular geographical area. So, in the aftermath of the subprime crisis, banks were that one industry, one domain which required huge capital infusion. And that is the reason they issued a lot of bonds to bring in some extra money in their balance sheet. Now, when I wish to confirm this data in respect to energy sector, I get to see it is almost 20% of what the highest number for a particular industry was. Now, how do we create this from a data which is given in pure $1,000,000? So let me open the Excel file which harbors the initial data set. So I have this data starting with the smallest sector, transport, and leading up to the highest issuance, that too in US dollar million. Okay. Now once I choose the data, I will ask you to go to Insert tab. Next, within charts, you go to the bar, and I am choosing the basic 2D bar. The same logic will be applicable if you are doing through the PowerPoint. Now, what are the different things that I notice in terms of difference? The first thing I notice is the numbers are in $30,000 million or maybe $60,000 million. Well, wouldn't it be convenient if I could show the same information in billion dollar? So instead of saying $60,000 million, I would be better off saying $60 billion. Okay, let's see how this is made. First, I right click on the axis. I go to Format axis. That is one. Within that axis, towards the right hand side, you will notice display units. You'll also find this setting in the older versions of Excel and PowerPoint. So when I go to display unit, one of the options says thousands. I'm just hovering my cursor on top of this setting, thousands. As soon as I do that, notice the numbers change to 10 to 20, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. However, I'll make this small adjustment by saying this is BN. Later, if I wish to add the data labels, I might choose one of the bars. The bubble indicates all the bars have been chosen. After which, if you're using 2007 or 10 version, you might have to go to the layout tab, which might appear on the top right of the screen. However, in 2013, I am going to design and chart element. Now add data label. Where would you want it? Let's say outside N. Okay, I can choose it and make it bold. Correct. Now what I want is this should appear with 1 decimal accuracy. So when I right click and go to Format Data Labels, other options come up before me, amongst which there will be a section called Number. So the same tab will also appear in 2007 and 10 version. However, the look may be slightly different. You might get a panel on the left hand side amongst the 10 or 11 odd options. One of them will be Number. So within Number, what it asks me, what kind of format do you want? Well, I will say number format, and that too with just 1 decimal. As I press enter, notice what happens. See? And a very nice way to make it look attractive is, let's say you are pitching to a client which might be an energy company. So I choose that energy. I choose it in fact twice. That makes sure that only one is selected. Now when I go to format, I choose the shape fill, let's say red, dark red. I go to the data label, choose it again. And this entire data label, I go to home and give color dark red. The same principle applies to PowerPoint as well. So it's a very nice and easy way to show a comparative study for all the different industries, and more so cutting down on the clutter of numbers and showing you the precise information which very well makes sense and at the same time is accurate. This time, we are going to learn the applications of 100% stack horizontal chart. Let me show an example which I picked up from one of the reports, and that is publicly available. So I went to this company's website. It's called Vedanta. It's based out of India. Technically, it might be listed somewhere else, but this company is into natural resources extraction, and that is being shown in contrast to other companies who are in the same industry. So for example, top global diversified natural resources company, this comparative EBITDA number was being shown in the corporate presentation report of Vedanta. If I remember correctly, it was August 2014. Now, within this report, what I see is every one of these companies are different in terms of volume of EBITDA, correct? And that has been decided in descending order. However, when I break the EBITDA in a percentage form, for example, BHP Billiton, 31% of its EBITDA is dependent on oil and gas sector, 43% on iron ore, and the remaining in other domains such as copper or maybe coal and so on and so forth. Now, suddenly, let's say if there is a huge drop in the prices of iron ore, which are the companies which are going to be affected the most? Well, you can find out from the strength of the dark red bar. The iron ore is 43%. In fact, two companies, Vale and Rio Tinto, they are hugely dependent on iron ore for their EBITDA margins. So this horizontal chart, 100% stacked, will able to give you a product mix or EBITDA mix or revenue mix, and in a single snapshot you can find out how are the competition companies placed vis-a-vis the current one, which in this case happens to be Vedanta. In fact, if you notice, one very unique thing about Vedanta is 50% of its EBITDA is dependent on oil and gas. Now, how do you create this? Let me do one thing. Let me open a quick new slide, Control N. I quickly go to a blank slide and then I will initiate the process of chart. I go to Insert, I go to Chart, and now amongst the list, I go to the bar chart. Within the available options, I am choosing the third one, which is called 100% stacked bar. Now, once I choose that and press OK, the view that I get will be that of, let's say, company 1, company 2, company 3, and company 4. And what you see as series 1, 2, 3, this could be the potential domains that they are in. So, for example, for a list of FMCG companies, let's say ITC, I can probably type in HUL and thereafter Procter and Gamble, and a new entrant in the Indian scenario, FMCG scenario, is Patanjali, right? Now, when I look at series 1, tobacco, no other company sells tobacco except ITC. So I'll find that ITC had this blue bar, which is saying that almost a majority of the revenue or EBITDA is being defined, contributed by who? By ITC's tobacco division. However, for the remaining, let's say Hindustan Unilever, there's a number 5, there's a number 8, very strong in series 3. So series 2 could be, let's say, personal care products business. So all the soaps, oil and the powder and perfumes are in personal care product business. Series 3 could be eatables. So maybe I can say the Patanjali, the new company that has arrived in this FMCG sector of India, it has no almost negligible revenue from personal care product business, considering the soap and toothpaste it sells, but eatables is the main thing that it focuses on. So if I close this, it tells me a story that by any chance if the government comes out with a regulation which is anti-tobacco, the company which will get the most amount of hit is ITC. And if there is any concern regarding the quality of the food overall in the country, then Patanjali will be hit the most. Of course, it all depends on individual companies' quality control and the product perception. Anyways, the idea was to show you how a 100% stacked horizontal chart can help you get a good idea over the product mix or the revenue mix. This time, we will be learning one of the most popular charts in the consulting world. Well, the reach of this chart has also been spread across the corporates too. So when I flip through the annual reports, investor presentations, and the sales brochures of several companies these days, I find this chart very prominently used in quite a few of them. So this is what we'll be referring. This chart is called waterfall or bridge chart. So what I've done is I've taken an example from one of the publicly available reports from Bain and Company. It was a report on the diamond industry, and it's an absolute fascinating report which gives a very detailed overview of the industry. So one of the pages has this chart which says only 20% of the produced rough volumes end up as gem quality polished diamonds. And to make it a point, it tried to show the entire journey. Total rough diamond, that's 128 millions of carats, that's the unit has been expressed, out of which roughly 55 to 65% goes towards industrial rough diamond use. The remaining part is what we classify as gem quality rough diamond. Now, a pie chart cannot show a negative value, a value which is decreasing one main variable. Plus, it has the effect of the sequence. So the sequence starts with rough diamonds, then industrial rough diamonds, then the gem quality rough diamonds, and if you start polishing it, the cutting and polishing process takes away half of the content. In fact, even more than that. And what's left remaining is the total polished diamond, which is of gem quality. So this is an absolutely fantastic journey to be able to be seen from the eyes of a waterfall chart. Let me take another example. And this is from Tata Power. When I went through their website, one of the documents inside the investor relations section spoke about how much power plants are they currently operating. So those are the three numbers. The gray stands for thermal power plants, the blue stands for hydropower plants, and green is for other renewables. Now there are certain projects which are under execution right now, and if I add them up, they would get stacked like these, and it's all adding up, thus showing you the cumulative effect. Under development projects, and still, even if I add up all these three, I may not see myself reaching the target. And what is the gap? This is the gap. There's a huge gap in the other renewable sector which I must fulfill because nothing has been planned so far. So maybe I intend to acquire a company which is trying to produce solar power. So this is not only a simple waterfall chart but also adding up the components of every bar. This next one is from BMW, the car company. I would be understating when I say the car company. Absolutely fantastic car company. Yes. So imagine if you had put in these sales of different variety of its premium segment cars in a pie chart, the thin slices would have confused you in terms of numbers. So what happens is it's getting stacked up, all these sales, and even as a layman, I can make out that there are 3 to 4 varieties which are the main backbone of the total sales. So this is another example. So far we have seen Bain and Company use it, we have seen Tata Power use it, and we are seeing BMW use it. In fact, BMW seems to be a very big fan of waterfall charts because I saw other variations of the waterfall chart in its report. So, in the group presentation of January 2014, it tried to chalk out the journey between earning before interest and tax of 2011 and earnings before interest and tax 2012. The entire variance analysis which shows what led to the increase and what led to the decline, such that end in end, all in all, the increment in EBIT was very small compared to what it could have been. Next, this is from Novartis. So almost the same concept, but this time horizontally. So now we see that what is the logic of waterfall chart, how to create them, and if you understand the logic once, you can create beautifully time and again. So after having seen a lot of examples from Bain & Company, Tata Power, BMW and Novartis, the examples of water chart being plenty before us. The final part, how do we create? So let me first start with the logic. And the logic goes like this, that you may have a certain product being made and that involves using material, labor cost, overheads, and because it may be set up in a rural part of the country, the government is giving you a subsidy of 5, and that brings down the total prime cost to 35. Now, if I were to draw waterfall chart based on this, how would I do that? What is the logic behind it, especially if I were to do this through the pen and paper approach? Well, let me bring a normal axis. So the starting point will be material, and I'm just putting a small stacked bar here, a single bar. This will be what? 10, correct? Now the way of waterfall approach is that the next item gets stacked. If it's an incremental value, it gets stacked like this. That happens to be how much? That is also labor cost. So the ending of the previous one is the starting of the next one. So the next one happens to be overhead cost. It is approximately 20, right? So you have overhead now. So they appear to be looking like staircases, or in other words, in reverse way, waterfall or a bridge. Now, the logic when you face a negative value, for example, all these were adding up to the cost, material, labor, overhead. But the moment you encounter an element which is a negative cost, in this case, subsidy, it will hold on to the line which was the last drawn stacked bar. However, it will not go up. That is wrong. Instead, let me put a bar which is on a downward movement, and this is what I'll be referring to, that subsidy amount of 5. This amount or the height is not to scale. This is just for illustrative purposes. Now, if I try to find out how are they hanging in midair, well, let me tell you this, they are not hanging in mid-air. They appear to be like that, but they are not hanging in mid-air. In fact, there are values underneath them, which I often refer as support pillars, invisible pillars. Now, if I had to plot this invisible pillar's value, what would it be? 10, given that it is of the same height as the previous one. How about the strength of this pillar? Yes, you would have guessed now correctly, 20. So basically, in here, I need to put a dummy pillar 0 material. Why? Because material doesn't need any pillar to stand on. What is the strength of the pillar for labor? And that is 10. How about overhead? That is in general 20. Now comes the tricky part. The worth of this pillar is how much? 5, correct? Now the height of this pillar total and this in total is same. So this is 40 and you have already taken 5. What would be the residual value out here underneath? Correct? It is going to be 35. So this is going to be the dummy pillar, and which I am posting out here as 35. Just ignore that no beautiful handwriting that I have. And now if I carve out the total cost, the height would look somewhat like this. This is the total cost carved out, 35. And that matches with the mathematics that I have already discussed in the table on the left. However, this last pillar doesn't need any invisible pillar to stand on. So I'm going to put what? 0 here. So when you plot this chart, the main effort goes into finding the strength of the invisible pillar. And once you do that, making this chart is super easy. And let me demonstrate by putting a simple chart on a PowerPoint. Do you want to keep the ink annotation? I say yes, please keep so. In fact, now let me go to insert. Oh, why do I do that? Why not I simply copy this, Control C. I go to insert, chart, and ask me what kind of chart you want to work with. Well, I will want to start with stacked column and put in OK, right? And it does give me some elements out here. So let me just go back and simply press Control V. I'll delete the column D. Yeah, I can hold on to column D and simply say Control minus. That's one of the Excel shortcut keys. Right, I'm just going to optimize the view. So the invisible pillar, the first one we had calculated, it was 0. Next it was 10. Next it was 20. And next it was 35. And finally, the last part would have been 0. Now, if you just compare what's happening, notice the light blue. This, we are going to change the fill color to no fill. Yes. Let me go back to the previous chart. I go to the blue one. I go to format and I go to shape fill, no fill. And this more or less looks like the same waterfall chart which you were expecting. Let me just optimize the view. Yeah, there are so many elements while we were experimenting. So if I bring them closer, this is one way. Apart from that, when I right click and go to format data series, one of the options says, what is the gap width do you want? Well, I want lesser gap width. They are more closer to each other. And I'll just change the color for this reducing one. Shape fill maybe red and the remaining as orange. So this was just a quick overview of the waterfall chart, but trust me, we are going to work with even more complex waterfall charts. And I just wanted to tell you that do practice this first through pen and paper approach, draw it, and then please implement the same numbers and logics on the PowerPoint or Excel charts. So after having discussed the logic behind waterfall charts and few examples from the industry, let's work on this more. Let's fine tune it. So I'm going to press escape and going to go to the Excel file where I have prepared a case study for you. This you can download from our website. And I have before me phase of material cost, labor cost, overhead cost, the subsidy being 25,000 and the total cost being the cumulative balance less subsidy. If you wish to draw this on waterfall chart, you must find the dummy pillar value, dummy pillar, right? Now the material, in fact, if I quickly add a shape of line, a simple one just for my illustrative purposes, and I go to shapes, I right click and go to lock drawing mode. This way I'll be able to quickly put blocks after blocks, one after another. So this is material, this could be labor, this could be overhead, and the next one will actually be reducing that, right? Not increasing, but reducing that. And finally, what you'll be left with is the total cost. Now, this actually helps you figure out the overall flow of the waterfall chart. The first one will be worth how much? 50. Yeah, I'm just going to right click and go to edit text, 50,000. Correct. And the next one is going to be how much? Right click, edit text, that's going to be 100. And the third one is going to be 200, not to scale. I'm just putting the values for illustrative purposes. And finally, when I reach to subsidy, it will be worth 25. And because of that, I will have a value, a net cost of 325, right? So the underlying value for material is 0. I agree. For labor, it's going to be 50,000. Correct. I'm going to type in 50,000. So dummy pillar column must be added before the cost. And then if we make a stacked column chart, then it will appear like a dummy pillar once I change the fill to no fill. So now coming to overhead, material, labor, overhead. The overhead invisible pillar will be worth the previous two, which is 150. So I am going to type in 150,000, enter. Now the tricky part. The total cost accumulated till date happens to be 350,000. Same height will be of the next pillar. So you've already taken out 25. The remaining part is how much? 325,000. So 350 minus 25, 325,000. And finally, the total cost doesn't need any invisible pillar to stand on. So I put 0, enter. So this is the entire effort. Once this has been created, I choose the data. I go to insert, column. I'm just pausing here because I want you to watch this in detail. Which chart am I choosing in the first place? The chart is called stacked column. Now if you imagine the light blue to be invisible, so either you may right click and go to format data series. There you'll find the same fill option which we have been using quite often. Or else you may simply go to format and go to shape fill and say no fill. The latter is the faster approach. So I'm first making everything green. Okay. In fact, it should have been the reverse, since it's a cost. So everything should be first turned to dark red. And the subsidy, I'm choosing it again. And the bubble indicates only one selection. So I make this green. And what you end up with is the final cost, which I'm putting under dark gray. Isn't that beautiful? So it shows you in a sequence manner, material, labor, overhead, all getting stacked up. Subsidy, lessening the burden, and then the final cost. If you wish to add the data label, I might choose this entire group of column. Go to design, add chart element, look for data labels. Where would you want it? Inside end, inside base, as a data call out, what? So you can choose to put whichever is more convenient for you. Although in certain cases, I believe you may have to do some formatting tricks to be able to make it see even more easily visible. So I choose inside base. I choose these values. I then go to format, shape fill, and I pick up light gray. And then when I go to right click format data labels, I will make sure the fill color has been slightly made transparent. Notice the overview. It'll be very thin effect, not too much. So probably 15% at max, maybe 20, not more than that. So once having reached here, I go to home and make it bold. So this is a nice and easy way to show the effect of all the bars. Of course, you can change the position by changing the labels value. If you don't want the leader lines, you might again go to right click and format data labels, and it show leader lines. No, I don't want those lines which connect them. Again, these are more of cosmetic changes because ultimately it's the base chart which should be first made, and finally the cosmetic changes will just allow to look this chart a little more from aesthetic point of view. So that is one of the waterfall chart examples. By the way, if you have a quick query that why is the dummy pillar there, well, you can select this twice and delete it. Gone. That's your cost. In the next example, we are going to take up waterfall chart data which involves the multi-stacked bar, not just one which you are seeing right now. So wait for that. As a continued series in the sequence of waterfall charts, let us take an exercise which is based on the annual report of Tata Power, and it has taken the help of waterfall chart to show that how is the situation looking like in terms of the power generation. The operating plants, the under execution plants, under development plants, all broken down individually in gray, which is thermal, blue, which is hydro, and green, which is other renewable sources. And even despite its best efforts in planning so far, they have yet to cover the gap And if they do so, they will be able to achieve the target which they have set for themselves. So what I've done is I have prepared a set of Excel data. So you have the basic information like operating plant's capacity, under execution, under development. So for example, under execution status within thermal, hydro and solar, this is the megawatt or gigawatt, whatever the units be used. This is the status. Now, how do I make it look like this? If I start comparing, all in all, there are three sources of power generation, but there is an invisible pillar which is standing just before who? Before thermal, hydro and others. So before thermal, hydro and others, let me add a column, and this will be referred by dummy, the one that we have been using to pull values, and that will be the invisible pillar. What else is missing? Operating, under execution, under development, and there must be another series which will be referring to who? Gap. So I'm adding a row. So basically this is the gap. I'm just going to mark this with red because these are data points which have been added later. So what is the gap here? Let me put in a formula saying equal to 19,000 less what? Sum of the previous three all combined together, enter, and copy paste right till the solar power. Now, if you start comparing one by one, in fact, let me expand the view. Yeah, it should not be a difficult task in PowerPoint. Just zoom in. Now watch, as I press Alt Tab and just compare, operating doesn't need any pillar to stand on, does it? No. So I put 0. Total doesn't need any pillar to stand on. So 0 again. Now, what is the dummy pillar value for under execution? It'll be nothing but the previous three's total value, that is operating combined, correct? So can I say equal to sum of the entire operating, even the one which is dummy, closing the brackets, enter. Now, if these two join hand, the total value be closer to what? 8,000. And this combined will be the invisible pillar strength for under development. So I'm going to type in a similar formula, in fact same formula, equal to sum and above 4, enter. What about the gap? Well, gap also looks the same way. The invisible pillar strength is equal to the combined strength of the previous three, operating, under execution, under development. So equal to sum of this value. This is nothing but the combined strength of previous two, operating and under execution, all plus the current one. Now once I've reached to this point, I'm going to choose the entire block, insert, column, stack. Now this is relatively an easy part. The tricky part is to make sure the dummy values are correct. Just sometimes you may have to look at the data structure. If by any chance your report looks like this, that's dummy, thermal, hydro or solar, you might have to go to design and click on switch rows and columns so that the data is transposed internally, and this is how your report looks like. So the blue happens to be the invisible pillar and I'm going to make it 1, no fill. The orange is nothing but the thermal power plants, so I'm giving the gray aspect to it. The next one, which is hydro, is I'm going to give a color of blue. Yep. And the third one is already there. That's the solar power. So if I expand the view, this is how it's going to look like. Notice the huge gap, and in fact majority of the gap coming from thermal power plant, but hey, as a percentage of it, if I look at it, solar power is something that I need to invest my time and energy and resources in. So you can decide on the different colors, you can add data labels, but all in all, this is the way waterfall chart may have been made for Tata Power as well. So do practice this, and I hope you develop a very good grip on developing waterfall charts. And to summarize, what are the different kinds of chart you may start working with? So one is of course this one, example 1, example 2. There is no negative value here, but still you can use it, especially when there are a lot of slices and dices of data. Yep, variance analysis, another area, and of course horizontally prepared. Now, once in a while, we would like to portray some complex information in our presentations or Excel such that it takes up lesser space and conveys the maximum information, and that too professionally. So here lies before us chart which I captured the screenshot of from BHP Billiton's annual report. It talks about sources and uses of funds. The gray is the net operating cash flow. On the other hand, the other expenditure, cash expenditure, are given in the non-gray colors. So in some years they have overspent, in some years they have underspent significantly. And over the years, what has been the component of their expenditure? Now, it's a tug of war between two teams. One team is a gray team, which is a cash inflow, and the other team on the other side of the opponent side is the one which is marked in orange, light blue, and dark blue. So how do you show this in this form of a chart? Now, I tried thinking of an alternative, let's say a pie chart or a column chart, but trust me, I could not compress the same information in half the slide. In fact, when I tried working with pie chart, I would require at least 4 to 5 pie to show this kind of information. So let us see how this is made. In fact, I'll give you one more parallel example to an Excel data, that if you're ever comparing the target sales, let's say gray is the target sales, and the actual sales is being met by 3 different divisions. One division is a prime mover and the other 2 are subsidiary movers, right? So in that case also you might think about making this chart. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, or quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So in this example I have taken 4 years, year 1, 2, 3, 4. Cash inflow is on one side of this tug of war, and on the other is cash outflow 1, cash outflow 2, and 3. So how do we make this? Firstly, tell me something. When you look at this chart, who is behind, the gray or the non-gray colors? Of course, the gray colors. When you take up a canvas and when you start applying color, a coat of paint, who is the primary layer? The canvas, and the secondary layer happens to be the coat of paint. In exactly the same manner, here the primary layer is the gray one and secondary layers are the non-gray colors. So this will help me in determining the axis very soon. I choose this information, I go to insert column, and since stacked column is predominant in this chart, I am using stacked column. But hey, when I look at it and I start comparing, in here it was the timeline which is appearing in the x-axis, right? And I don't see that happening in the current chart. So what do? Well, I'll first go to design and click on switch row and column. 2011, 12, 13, and 14. And for the purpose of comparison, I'm changing the color. This is the primary layer, that's cash inflow. Changing the color, shape, fill, and light gray, a little darker. The next one, which happens to be your cash outflow 1, I am turning that as color blue. How about this? The next one, which is talking about cash outflow 2, I'm coloring it with a lighter shade of blue. And thirdly, I am picking up orange for the last. Closer. Now, all the chart elements are on the same axis right now. I want to keep the primary layer, which is cash inflow, in the primary axis, and I don't have to do anything for that. However, for the remaining 3, I need to convert them in secondary axis. So I right click, and in 2013, you might straight away go to change series chart type. Why? Because in 2013 version of Excel, there is a panel where you can change all these 3 at one go. I'll come back to this one, but for now let me use a route which is equally applicable for 2007, 10, 13, and 16 version of Excel or PowerPoint. On the dark blue, right click, format data series. Then I make sure that is secondary axis. Okay. I go to the light blue, I right click, go to format data series, and then I go to secondary axis. Now in some cases you will not be able to see the value which has been represented by the orange one, because they may fall behind the scenes. So in which case you might choose the legend CO3. Notice the bubble? Then you do a right click, format data series, and then make it show secondary axis. And finally, the gap width I'm going to increase, because now as soon as I increase the gap width, they become thinner. They get lesser ground to stand on. And if I look at the axis value, this seems to be small anomaly. I'm going to make that consistent. Right click, format axis, and I'll just turn this to 300, and that way both axis values are same. So first 3 years they have overspent. Let me check. Mathematically, is it correct? So first year it was actual expenditure 205 and cash inflow was 200. So you slightly overspent. In the last year it was total 190, and that is equal to cash inflow, and there was no overspending. If you had to do this same in 2013, how fast could you have done? Well, let me go a few steps behind. This was our starting point. So apart from the color. In fact, let me change the color this time, much more darker shade of gray. How about this being the lighter shade of blue this time, this one being the darker shade of blue, and this one happens to be the orange one, which is, what is it right now? Now in 2013, there's a much faster approach. When I right click, instead of going to format data series, I will be going to change series chart type. Cash inflow is primary axis, I can see that. Cash outflow has to be secondary, 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 all three of them. And once I reach till that point, I will choose right click, go to format data series, and make sure the gaps between these small columns are higher such that they get lesser grounds to stand on. And finally, make sure the axis values are equal. So I right click, format axis, and there you go. I'll make it 300, the maximum, which is in line with the secondary axis. Enter. So there you go. This is 2-axis stacked chart combination of both. This time we are going to learn about stacked 100% column chart. Now, sometime I use the word 80-20 loosely to depict this kind of a chart. Why? I'll tell you. For example, I have 5 regions in which the products are being exported to. And the way I put the sales in a particular column stacked, it is giving me the breakup. So you can very well notice that the North American region is a very prime area for my exported goods. However, when I compare the profitability contributed by each of these regions, I notice that the Asia Pacific region, which is the dark blue amongst the blue regions, the dark blue, although sales wise it might just be featuring by what, let's say 14% or maybe 15%. But when I look at the contribution in terms of profitability, I see it has contributed more than maybe 15-18 odd percentage. So in a way, a small amount of sales in the African region is giving me more profit compared to in terms of percentage. So on occasions when you have all positives values, then you can use this contribution analysis using sales and profit as two variables to show that maybe for per rupee or per dollar of sale, the comparative profitability is lesser or more as you would compare with the other regions. So let's see how this is made. So what I've done is provided you the Excel workbook where the raw data is stored. So I have before me US dollar million, profit US dollar million for all the 5 regions. Now I go to insert, I go to column, and amongst the options given, I am choosing 100% stacked column. Okay. Now notice there is some sort of communication gap between me and Excel, right? I should have got sales and profit as 2 bars. All right. So what I'll do is I'll go to design and there's a button called switch row and column. When I do that, notice how quickly it changes its position and sales and profit being the 2 variables, and each of them have the innermost stacked portions of the 5 regions. If I choose the plot, the entire plot, as you can see from the bubble border, I can then go to design, add chart element. In the older versions of Excel and PowerPoint, this would have been given by the tab called layout. So what they have done is they have taken away the layout tab and put inside these add chart elements, within which I go for lines and I choose series lines. Notice as I choose one of them, I can go to format and then I can decide on the format which will help me depict how much sales is contributing to how much profit in terms of percentage. So I have not seen this used very commonly, but once in a while, if you do get this kind of a chart, you might want to use this. In this video, I'll talk about a small trick which is associated with Doughnut chart. Take a look at this. Now in Excel, if I change these values, the 66% to let's say 90%, the light orange color will capture the entire area, and what you'll get to see is the underlying thread. Now it looks like a ring, and it's quite fascinating to see this when you are building an Excel dashboard. However, even in PowerPoint, when you use this, the small blue ring helps me figure out what is the missing link, what is the part which is not relevant. So maybe 70%, approximately 2/3 of the people who took the survey said yes to something and the remaining said no. But I don't want to show that no so prominently, in which case I may want to show them in a thread-like mode. So how is this prepared? Yes, that's something we'll see. First, I am going to the Excel workbook where the data is stored, and this is what I wish to create. Okay. So first I have this value 66% and the remaining is 34%, which is the dummy. Dummy refers to the blue ring. I go to insert, pie section, within which donut chart. Now the smaller region, the orange one, I'm going to choose it twice, and then I make sure the shape fill, which is being accessed from the format of the chart tools, is being set as no fill. Now what? Well, the next trick is I then go ahead to shapes. Yes, shapes. It might seem like a very unconventional trick, but once you complete watching the entire series, you will be able to put the puzzle pieces together. So I go to the oval, I press shift and then I draw one. Next, I go to shape fill and I say no fill. Next, the shape outline, I am putting the weight, an extra weight. So basically I have a symmetrical circle with no fill inside. Now, temporarily, I'm going to copy this. Why do I copy this? Because once you copy, it's there on the clipboard. Now watch closely. I choose the plot area. Mind you, I'm choosing the plot area. I am right clicking on the plot area. Now you have to be very careful. Sometimes if you are not careful, you might right click on the chart itself. No, I don't want that. So right click on the plot area. You will be getting format plot area. Now within format plot area, I go to fill option and I say picture or texture fill, and that picture must be taken from the clipboard. Now notice, since you had copied this drawn shape, it is there on clipboard, and if it's there on the clipboard, the fill of the plot has been adjusted from picture or texture fill, and that too from clipboard. But hey, it doesn't look that nice, primarily because it's just at the outer layer of this donut. So what I do is I change the offset by a few points. Let me test with 5%. Notice the movement. So ultimately it is getting closer to the center, and that is something I am looking forward to. So this is what you were looking at initially, and now the remaining is just using the right color combination to make it look aesthetically appealing. And there you go. This is the chart we were referring to. This time we are going to talk about Radar chart. It's also popularly known as spiderweb chart. Now why is it used? How does it look? Let me give you a glimpse. So take for example, there are two forms of exercises, running and swimming. And as a body scientist, I am checking out whether the nutrient 1, nutrient 2, 3, 4 and 5, what quantities it's essential for these two forms of exercises. For example, nutrient 3, it's an absolute essential for both forms of activity. On a scale of let's say 1 to 10, I would give 7 or maybe 8 to both these forms of exercises with respect to nutrient 3. However, when I compare nutrient 1 and nutrient 2 requirements with swimming vis-a-vis running, you notice in the exercise of running, nutrient 1 and 2 is heavily required vis-a-vis swimming. So in a single snapshot, it is able to tell you which amongst the 5 variables, that is nutrient 1 till 5, is more important and suited for the two forms of exercise. Similarly, if I compare two types of cars, one could be very high on speed and one could be better in terms of durability. However, in terms of power, they may both be the same. So it's a good form of comparison of two different variables or two different products on various parameters where they may have been graded on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. And how is it made? Let me do one thing. Let me press Ctrl N. That enables me to look at a new slide. New slide, here it goes. I go to insert, I go to chart, and then I look for radar chart. So the official name is radar chart, but because of its look, it's also referred as spiderweb chart. Now, let me pick up the first one and I press OK. Now, in few moments, you will see a basic chart. In this case, instead of nutrient 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it is talking about date. So let me just write, nutrient 1. And if I drag this down, I get this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I copy and I paste it out here. Simple paste should do. Now, one form of exercise could be what, let's say weightlifting, one could be running, correct? And if you wish to change the chart, let me just go back to the chart which I made, change the chart type. You may choose this, go to design and click on change chart type, you may opt for this one. The one which is being says filled radar. So in the advantage of filled radar is I can choose this block, the blue block, go to format, maybe go to shape fill, can choose more fill colors and then maybe increase the transparency a bit. Let's say if I do that, okay, notice I can see what's behind the screens. I may also go to fill. So in the fill, it clearly doesn't talk about the fill of the inside shape. Hence, I do not get fill shapes. In fact, format will be a better route. So I go to the orange, I go to shape fill. Let's say I want to make it blue. Okay, that's fine. I might go to more fill colors and increase the transparency. So for changing the transparency level of the fill of a radar chart, this is the better route. And if you want, you can change the color, that's more suited, and shape outline, maybe dark red. And how about this? Maybe a dark blue will suit better. And this, if you wish, you can delete it. So what you have before us is weightlifting versus the second exercise, which could be running. So between these two, the requirements of nutrient may be differently placed. So that is the example of spider web chart or radar chart. In fact, HR people can use this to map the skill sets to a particular job position. So for example, maybe patience is a very high requirement if you are applying for a professor level position. However, if you were to act as a trader on Wall Street, one of the key abilities is to do a lot of mathematical calculations at the flick of a second in your mind. So that's the difference in skill sets and the requirements for different jobs. If you're into project management and managing tasks based on the deadline set for them, then this is the chart for you, Gantt chart. Notice in this simplistic Gantt chart, what I have is 5 tasks and each task have been assigned certain number of days in which it must be completed. So for example, task 1, 3 days. Once it finishes, then task 2 begins, 2 days, and it continues 5, 2 and 3. However, at times it may also happen that one of the tasks, let's say task number 4, might be overlapping with task number 3 for one day. So how do you do that? Now, if I were to back calculate this and decipher what kind of chart has been used here, I can show you the trick. For example, if I choose this section, closer to the line, notice there seems to be something invisible standing before these horizontal bars, right? Now, if I just make them a very light colored gray, you'll get to know that they are not hanging in midair, although appear like a staircase, but they are not hanging like that. They are supported by these light gray bars. So ultimately, it happens to be stacked horizontal bar chart. So how do you make it is what I'll be showing you next. I am pressing Ctrl N, helps me open a new slide. I'm just clearing all the text boxes away. I'm going to go to Insert, Chart, and go for bar diagram. Okay, within bar, I'm going for the stacked bar. Okay, now, so what I'll do is I will feed in the data first. Let me say task 1. Let me put in the digit 1. Once I drag this down, what I get is task 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to paste on top of this one, task 1, 2, 3, 4. Later we'll see how can I make it in a reverse order. So as of now, what you need is just 2 columns. I'm deleting the third one by pressing Ctrl minus. So first is the dummy, which will be invisible. And the second is number of days, right? Now, the first time, if I compare with the chart from the previous slide, I notice there's no dummy section here. It's just 3 days. So I put, let's say 0 and then after 3 days. Okay. Next, the strength of the previous days is the invisible benchmark followed by the number of days required for task 2. So the dummy in this case will be 3 and the next task requires 7 days, let's say. Now, the next dummy is the combined total of the previous 2 tasks duration. So 3 plus 2 is the combined duration. It's very similar to waterfall chart concept. So I will add the dummy 10 and let's say this is just for 4 days. Finally, when I add up the strength of all the duration days, so 3 and 7 and 4, that comes out to be 14. That will be the dummy and the last one just takes 2 days to complete. Now when I close this, let me reverse the order of these tasks. I right click on the axis, I go to format axis. Once I do that, there will be one setting which will say categories in reverse order. So it's a simple way of just reversing the categories, in this case task. task 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if I choose the blue bar and make it go invisible, how? Shape fill and no fill. Now notice it has the same effect. Task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4. Now if I right click and go to edit data, and if I reduce the dummy heading by let's say 13, what does it mean? It means for one day the task 3 and task 4 is overlapping. Now I can choose one bar at a time, click on it twice and then change the color if you wish to. So those are more in the cases of beautifying those. In fact, if I click outside and choose the bar, the bubbles indicate all the horizontal bars have been chosen, and then you might right click on it and say please add data labels. There you go. Choose the data label. If you wish, you can make it go heightened in terms of the font size, make it color white. So that's how it looks. 3 days, 7 days, 4 days, and the last task is overlapping for one day with the previous task. So that is the basic form of Gantt chart. Of course, there are a lot of add-ins available on the internet which let you make this a much more faster and in a much more complex form, but you should have the basic idea of how this is made. In this series of mini tricks, I wish to share with you all the aesthetic tricks which can help you beautify the charts that you work with. So the first one, if you ever work with estimates which are coming from two different sources and you want to show the divergent views, use this concept of Gostlines. Again, it's not a technical word, but I use this to depict dotted lines and there are two divergent lines. In fact, in one of our earlier videos on Gostlines, I've explained how to prepare this. Next aesthetic trick is what I saw in one of the reports which was published by TCS, Tata Consulting Services. It's publicly available. What I liked about this entire pie is the pie which has lesser number of slices is shown as a miniature pie. So basically it talked about how many people worked in their company in terms of the country of origin. So Indians 93% and remaining are from foreign origins. And even within foreign origins, they are able to show the breakup in terms of which country are they belonging to. So two simple straight lines, and that helps me depict the pie of a pie. Personally, I prefer this because here you can control the size of both the pies and the direction. Next, if ever you wish to highlight the audience's attention towards a particular part of a chart, you might want to add this semi-transparent highlighter, and that's not difficult, something that we have covered in our PowerPoint sessions. If you create a rectangle, you might want to tell that please no outline, and for the shape that you're working with, let me go to right click format shape. Now within that, you will get the panel on the right and just increase the transparency a bit, let's say 70-80 odd percentage. And then if you place it on any portion of the chart, ultimately you can use as a highlighter, and that takes your audience's attention towards a specific area of the slide. So that was another aesthetic trick. Next, trick number 4. It makes sense that if you're able to put an average line on top of your column chart, this helps the audience read the information in terms of how many of them are way above average and how many of them are way below average. Now, technically, one way of doing so is just putting a straight line. And how do you draw a straight line? Well, you go to Insert, Shape, pick up the straight line, but hey, don't start drawing until you have pressed Shift and keeping Shift pressed and then starting the point of origin and then drawing that line. If ever you wish to extend this line in future, keep Shift pressed and then extend it. That way, there will never be a 5% deviation in terms of angle. And if I want, I can apply a format which looks more appropriate for the given chart. However, you can also put a similar line when you have two sets of data. One will be depicted by these numbers which you can see on this information chart, and the second will be a calculated average for which we will provide them in a line graph mode. Next trick, aesthetic trick number 5. Now, it's not exactly a chart trick, but it makes sense if you're able to show year-on-year growth in terms of percentage. Because hey, if you were to put two numbers side by side and not being able to show the percentage, it doesn't give me the best overview. So in all these cases, I'm more concerned about the current year's number, and in comparison to last quarter or last year, what has been the jump or the decline. So this screenshot, I took it from one of the publicly available reports, which is from Novartis Pharma Company's website. It is very informative, and you may have to spend some time on creating these oval shapes and put the percentage. But trust me, when the audience is very large and very curious, you might want to keep them informed. Aesthetic trick number 6. At times, the column data or the chart data doesn't have too much of a variation. If you try to put 30% and 31 and 32% in a column chart, they would look almost same. So one clever trick to show the growth is include underlying number to be 30%, 35 and 40%. However, technically that may not be correct. So you might put an artificial line break, and that's again not difficult. You can go to insert and shape, pick up a white line and just draw one line, and make sure after having drawn that, go to format, shape outline white in color, and then increase the weight of that particular line item. So that is an artificial break. In fact, it is quite often used when, remember during statistics days, you used to draw the chart and the intersection of x and y axis, you used to create two ziggly lines out here, which shows a break in the scale. Something very similar. Now, time for the next trick. Next aesthetic trick is the leader lines. Now, what are leader lines? Well, if you are making a donut chart, or for that matter in a pie chart also, I'm going to chart and going to pie. In 2013, they have classified donut under the category of pie. So I make a dummy donut chart. Now, when you right click on any pie slice and say add data labels, it does add data labels, no doubt about that. And beyond that, if I right click on the data label, I might also go to format data labels. So one of the option is show leader lines, which means if I keep this label outside, this leader line will trace the origin till its destination. Now, if I compare these two donuts, apart from the color, the line where the leader lines are straight, that looks more professional as compared to data labels where the angles are all different for the different slices of the donut. So yeah, it may take time. You may have to go inside the option and disable the leader line first, disable that, and then maybe go to insert, shape, right click on the line, says lock drawing mode, and now I press shift and then draw one line here. I press shift and then draw one line here. I press shift again and draw one line here, and again shift and draw another line. So this way I'm able to draw straight lines, and that is how I will try to mimic this kind of a report, which I first saw in one of the group investor presentations from the BMW company. So do give it a try. These collection of aesthetic tricks will help make your chart look a lot better than it is now. This time, let me talk about a case study on charts. Well, I have a case study with respect to a lending company. So what happens, people apply for certain loan. It could be a home loan or a car loan or a two-wheeler loan, or at the same time, it could be any home appliances loan, let's say washing machine. Now, when I send a particular request for loan, those are called number of files received. Some of them may get rejected and the remaining may be taken for the further approval, which ultimately gets approved. Now, after approval, it might take another 15 or 30 or maybe even 60 days to send the money to his bank account, correct? So that is what we refer as amount disbursed. So if I receive 40 applications in a month and I approve 30 applications, it is called files approved. Out of those 30 files, 20 files I have already disbursed the amount, and that's what we refer as number of files disbursed. Now, those are number of files, number of applications. Corresponding to number of applications, there's an attached amount, money. How much worth of loan was actually disbursed in that month? So it could be $10 million, correct? Some of which pertain to any loan approved in the prior month. So I want to catch a quick trend on what is happening in this company. Now, if you choose the data and go to insert and make a normal basic column chart, you would get some very nice colors. But the idea is I can find no trend amongst this. Even if you decide to switch row and columns such that you get January data, February data and March data, Those are just discrete pieces of information lying before you in some colorful charts, but they do not capture any information which is worth my look. So what do? I simply get rid of it, and let me show you what was actually created. So it tells me in the 3 months that you see, the black border refers to number of files approved, and based on that, or maybe some prior month's file approved, how many number of files which has been dispersed, the amount has been dispersed to the borrower. Now I also want to see how many logins have been created that particular month. Okay, now these were three similar variables, hence I have put them in the same primary axis. The red dots are nothing but a line graph and I have removed the color of the line. The shaded blue and the black border refers to the thermometer chart which we have discussed in one of our prior videos. And on the secondary axis, I have spoken about the monetary amount. Monetary amount of what? The loan approved, that's the yellow one, and blue is loan disbursed. A huge mismatch indicates that maybe you have approved the loan but have not disbursed the amount, or in certain cases you have not even approved the loan and yet disbursed the amount. So let's see how a trend can be caught. So first I choose the information, I go to insert, I go to column, and I will be choosing a basic column chart. That's my starting point. Now I simply go to switch row and column such that I have Jan and Feb and March in the current horizontal axis. I'm just making them bold by choosing and pressing Ctrl B. Now I choose any chart element and I right click, and we will all go to change series chart type. In 2013 and in 2016 version of PowerPoint or Excel, this allows me to go to the panel of combo. From combo, let's see what things can be achieved. First things first, let me segregate the two different variables of different scale. One is a monetary amount, one is the numbers. So the monetary amount, let me put them in secondary axis. The value, both of them, let me convert into line graph. Super. And amongst these three variables, number of files approved and number of files dispersed, I want to compare these two and yet also compare logins but without having any interference from login. So I keep all these three in the primary axis, and yet in the login section, I convert into line graph. Now I press OK. Before I create the thermometer chart for the loan, number of files dispersed and number of files approved, let me catch hold of this blue. This blue indicates the number of logins and it is being read by the primary axis. Okay, fine. I go to format and I say shape outline, no outline. Notice simply the line disappearing. Next, I go to shape fill and I click on the red. Super. Now we'll talk about the other cosmetic changes later, but let me make sure I have the orange and the gray as thermometer chart. So what do? I right click on the gray, then I go to format data series. I would say please make them overlap on top of each other, right? Now, whichever you think is the primary thing which needs to be seen in the background, you might make it transparent color with a solid borderline. So in this case, maybe I want to keep a number of files approved as the primary thing. So I choose it, I go to fill, and then I say fill, no fill. Okay. How about then going to borders, and it should be a solid line, maybe with a black color. I will increase the thickness. Super. And in certain cases where gray is overlapping on the black border, what I'll do is I'll choose the gray. I go to fill and I'll say give me a solid fill, let's say blue color, but do increase the transparency such that it has a look like this. Super. And at the same time I go to border and I say please no border. That's fine. No border, no line. And I close this out. Now take a look. What other combinations of tricks might I apply to make it even look more appealing? I choose a red dot, correct? I then go to right click and format data series. Super. Now amongst the many options, I will go to fill and I'll talk about markers. Markers are nothing but the red dots. And now I'll click onto markers. Now within marker options, I will go to built-in, choose the geometric shape which I want, and then increase the size. And I then close this out. So this is the chart that I'm able to look. Of course, I'll be putting some data labels to give them the numeric indicator of what the strength of each bar is. But now notice how easily, without cluttering the chart, I'm able to show loan approved and disbursed in terms of value through the yellow and blue. Through the thermometer chart, I'm able to see the number of files approved and the number of files dispersed, and just to have a trend of the number of logins created, the red dot is the right indicator. So friends, this is how we may use our prior knowledge of thermometer chart and multi-axis chart and changing the settings to make a chart look like this. In the series of projects on charts, here comes another. So with respect to a lending company which disburses loan in various tranches and different chunks. So for example, I may have applied for a 3 crore loan. My friend would have applied for a $10 million loan, correct? So the company tracks the amount of bands in which the loans have been disbursed. So for example, in the month of January, there were 22 loan applications which were worth 0 to 50 lakhs. And the same month, 51 to 75 lakhs loan band, there were 6 applications. So I want to catch this trend in a chart along with the fact that I want to capture the total amount of loans disbursed that month. 68 is nothing but the total of all Jan amount. Now, as again, if I go to insert and column and maybe normal column chart, even if I happen to switch row and column, I get no overall trend. I can see individual trends, blue, 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 or maybe orange, 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 but I'm not able to figure out the interrelationship between them. So what do I propose is this. It should look like this. So in the month of January, the proportion of 0 to 50 loan band was somewhat significant, approximately 30%, but that went down to probably 20-25 odd percentage, and again drastically went up to 40+%. Now when I look at the orange one, which is 51 to 75 lakh loan band, it was very good in the month of February. The percentage amongst the entire Feb loan disbursement, majority of it was captured by the orange and the light orange. So I wish to find out what went wrong, high net worth individual not applying for loans for the next business. So this is also going to let me ponder over questions which are relevant for me to drive the business to completely new level. So let us see how is this created. So I delete this chart and I'll start fresh. I choose the entire block, I go to insert and I will pick up, which one? 2D column for sure, but I'll pick up 100% stacked column chart. I click on it. Now I do not see the timeline in this case, so I will go to switch row and column, that way Jan, Feb and March. But hey, one of these chunks is the total and that should not be mixed up with the individual loan banks. So what do? I right click, I go to change the series chart type. So the total is listed at the bottom. I completely change that into line graph and secondary axis. Notice how quickly I'm able to show what is the total amount of loan disbursed, and in each month the proportion of every loan band amongst them. So as I press OK, that's where you get the chart. Of course, now if you can change the color to suit it more as per your company's policy, and at the same time you can choose the chart elements, go to design, chart element, and maybe also add data labels. Again, those are things you can do just to make the chart look beautifully in terms of color and font, but essentially the data visualization is what we intend to focus on. Do make this chart and let me know if you could apply this in the near future. In this quick video, we will learn about the tornado chart, also called as butterfly chart. Now what is this? Take for example, I wish to track the demographics of the site visitors. So how many visitors are below the age of 18 and how many of them fall in the different age categories, and that too by gender. So I wish to compare that below 18, of course, male users are very significant, almost 20% more than that of female users on the website. Now, how do I create this? Well, let me first start with the raw data. Male, female, data provided. And if I go back to my previous sheet which talks about the chart, notice there is a couple of bars which are absolutely invisible. And if I choose this middle part of the chart, then also there's a bar. And at the last part, then also there is a bar. So what exactly has been used? Well, to make this kind of a chart, you need some extra dummy numbers to pad this invisible area up. We call that as cell padding. Now, what is the calculation? Well, if the highest user group is 121, then I consider slightly more than that, 150 as a benchmark. We will call 150 as a benchmark. So this plus this shall be 150, and this plus its dummy padding shall also be 150. Hence we take the maximum so as to include everybody. So 121 being the maximum set of number, hence adding some number to it, thus becoming 150. So 150 on left hand side, 150 on the right hand side, and in the middle some space required to give in the series name. So how does it look? So I go to the next column and I type in m underscore padding and f underscore padding. That way I will be able to differentiate how much cell padding required for each of the given categories. And there'll be one more category, and that will be for what? Series name. Correct. So 150 was our benchmark. So I type in a formula saying equal to 150 minus 121. So double click, get it on board. This 29 relates to the small cell padding out here, 29. The remaining out here will be what? 72, which I can see from the next value. Similarly, for the female padding of the cells, I would need a value here which says 52. So let's find that out. Equal to 150 less 98, enter, copy paste down. Now I need some space in between to put in these values, correct? Hence I'm just arbitrarily giving, let's say 50, enter, and that will be common to all the categories of the age. Now when I go ahead and I choose the entire block, in fact let me color code this. The ones which have been artificially created, I'm giving a color red. I choose the entire block, I go to insert, I go to horizontal bar, and I choose the second one which says stacked bar. Now it looks all half absurd. I am not able to make any sense out of this. Wait, you will. So what I do first is I go to design tab and I choose select data. You can also do it from here. Right click and say select data. Now notice first section is going to talk about the M padding, then male, then the series name, then female, and then finally F padding. So I'll decide on the sequence. So first I bring the M padding part above, right to the top, then the series name on the middle, then the female, and then finally F underscore padding. And then I press OK. Now the gray ones and the mustard orange are the ones which I'll make it invisible. So I go to format and shape fill, no fill. How about the next one? Yes, format, shape fill, and no fill. Even the dark blue one, that's the area where I'm supposed to keep in all the series name. So I will say shape fill, no fill. Now, couple of things to clean this chart up. I would want below 18 to be presented right under the top. So I must right click on this axis, go to format axis, and within format axis there is one setting which says categories in reverse order. So when I click on that, notice instantly below 18 is the first one, 56 and above is the last one. And once it's there, it's not easily helping me recognize the categories or the series for the right hand side bar. So what do? I click in the middle, which is the invisible series name, as you can see in the background. I right click and I say please add the data labels. However, I don't want the value. I want the name below 18, 18 to 25, the category name. So I right click, I go to format data labels. Since my selection is on the numbers, format data label is appearing. And now I take away the tick from rest. Let me do it again. I choose it, right click. Format data labels will only appear once you've added the data labels. Again, right clicking, format data labels. I click on category and take away the values and show leader lines. And I press OK. Now I might decide to reduce the font size a bit and maybe make it bold. Now 56 and above, what I might also say 56, and I can write and above, enter. That way it takes lesser space. Do I need the left hand side axis value? No, not at all. I will even delete this. And finally, I will go to each of these bars and add the numeric value attached to it. So right click, add data labels. Okay, I do the same, right click, add data labels. Now it comes to formatting these colors and the font. So the one that I'm choosing right now, the light blue one, I'm going to turn into dark blue. And the labels, I will turn them in white color. White color, as you can see, making bold and slightly reducing the size. That's what it is. I choose the same for the right hand side one. I make it white color, lesser size, bold definitely, and the bar color, I'm going to change that to something which is very dark and prominent. There you go. So this happens to be a butterfly chart or tornado chart, and shows me a very nice funnel like look and trying to help me figure out that what is the current demographics of the visitors that are there on my site. If you wish, you can clean this, get rid of this chart title, or maybe even add something and delete these grid lines which are vertical. Delete, gone. And this could be your raw data for the chart element on PowerPoint. So that was tornado chart.
So that you've seen all these charts, and I'm really glad that you were able to make it till the 1.5 hours length duration of the video to learn so much new stuff. If you liked any of these tricks and you would like your fellow subscribers to know about it, please do comment in the section below, and in the description you can look at the timestamps to go and jump to specific videos if you want to revise later point in time. I'm Rishabh signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.